One last question from me, just a reaction from the EFF with regards to what transpired yesterday. We saw there the speaker handing herself over and also appearing in court getting a bail of 50,000.
Look, the speaker must be held accountable. It's actually long overdue. She should have been held accountable a long time ago, because the affidavit that led to her arrest was written and produced in 2021. She should have been held accountable a long time ago. And we're aware that the sitting head of state was trying by all means to prevent her ultimate and inevitable arrest. Should have been held accountable a long time ago, because in all honesty, Nos VOA has not been very helpful to Parliament. These 6 Parliament has been the most repressive of parliaments since our participation as the EFF. The highest number of EFF members expelled, salaries suspended for no sound reason. So many arbitrary and very repressive decisions taken under her guard. You could see that she's trying to please those that were protecting her from this corruption, because this corruption had happened 3-4 years ago, and it's only now that the action is being taken. So it's good that ultimately she's being held accountable and she's going to appear before a court of law, and we hope that the prosecution's authority is well prepared to present a solid case and convict her. But one thing which South Africa must know is that what Nosiviwe has been doing of taking bribes from service providers is all what all ANC ministers are doing. There's not a single minister of the ANC who is not collecting bribes from these people. It's just that they have not yet been uncovered. That is their modus operandi. They operate like that everywhere. Whenever they service providers, they go and collect money in the name of the organization in their own personal capacity as well. They say, no, fundraising for the organization, please pay back this money because you are a service provider to my department. I can tell you now that if South Africa were to put a lie detector from the head of state to each and every minister and say, have you ever taken a bribe? If they say no, the lie detector will show and scientifically prove them otherwise. Because all these ministers, whenever they occupy positions of power, they utilize those positions for self-enrichment, and they use those positions to influence the procurement policies and processes so that they can personally benefit. So what Nosiviwe was caught doing, was caught for, is what they all do. That is why they will support her and say she's conscious and all of those other things, because they know that all of them are engaged in those kind of shenanigans. But what led that ultimately there was action that was taken against her. We hope that the prosecution's authority is not going to be messy, it's not going to be clumsy in terms of how it presents its case, so that the conviction is secured and will send a very strong signal and lesson to the upcoming generations that you cannot just go around collecting bribes from service providers.
Talking about the election day, as the EFF, do you guys feel like, I'm saying this as the day approaches, do you guys feel like enough education has been done by the IEC, to ensure that come that day, it becomes fair to political parties, even South African, when they cast their vote?
Look, I think that because 2024 is introducing a new electoral system which has got 3 ballots for the first time since 1994, the IEC must go on a massive voter education, but also the political parties that are participating. We all should collectively go on massive voter education to educate our people, particularly in rural areas and areas that do not have access to digital media and communication. That let's go on a huge voter education. We must go to voter education in this way similar to what was done prior to the 1994 elections, where we explained to the entirety of society as to just how do you vote over 3 ballots, and it appears that one of the ballots has got 2 pages which must be flipped over. So we must be running proper and massive voter education. The specimens for the ballot papers must be printed to illustrate to people as to just how are they going to vote on the actual day of elections. Because if the voter education is not properly conducted, it is going to lead to a lot of spoiled ballots, or a lot of people who will make a lot of mistakes, particularly when you've got a ballot paper with 2 pages. and then with 3 ballots as well, they will not know just what is expected. So we need to intensify voter education, all of us. But the IEC must take the lead in terms of conducting voter education, but also the media platforms as well in South Africa. The public broadcaster and all other news platforms must run massive voter education on all prime television and prime radio and all the most visible parts of print newspapers and magazines must illustrate to our people as to just how are we going to vote in 2024, because it's not similar to how the voting happened in 1994, in 1999, in 2004, in 2019. So we now need to have a different manner in which we deal with it.
Mr. Shivambu, this matter, that affidavit was tabled before the Joint Standing Committee 2 years ago, as you said, or even more. Do you think maybe members of Parliament through committees and the National Assembly itself is doing enough to hold each other accountable, especially when it comes to matters?
So, do you know the internal mechanisms and systems to hold members of Parliament accountable in Parliament are extremely partisan and factional. So the ANC sits in its parliamentary caucus or something they call study groups, which they then discuss who do we convict, who do we hold accountable for political reasons. There is no adequate justice mechanism within Parliament. So if you were to check, like almost all opposition party members who get to appear before those committees are automatically convicted and banished and punished unfairly by a dominant ruling party. That is why we, as the EFF, have approached the High Court in the Western Cape Division to say that there has to be a different conflict resolution or ethics enforcement system in Parliament which does not involve politicians. Because always when politicians are involved in adjudicating over an issue that involves another political party, they are much more inclined to find them in a negative for political narrow reasons. So that is the problem. So like you can imagine that if a speaker is reported, she's the one who presides over that institution. Those members of the ANC, they were obviously inclined almost naturally to say, let's save the speaker, let's save the organization. We do not want to humiliate the organization for one reason or another. So we need to have a different conflict resolution and an ethics enforcement mechanism in Parliament than the partisan.
But let's talk about the introduction of independence on the ballot and South Africans having that option. Do you think citizenry is ready for that option, and do you think our electoral system is ready to administer that process with independent candidates? But what is the impact, if there will be any, what is likely to be the impact of independent candidates on political parties that have been enjoying fair support, such as the top 4 parties in this country?
So if you were to gauge the outcomes of the 2014 and 2019 elections, so the average number of votes each person gets to be voted into Parliament through is 40 to 45,000. So you need about 40,000 votes to be a member of Parliament. I don't think that any of the independent candidates that were presented by the IEC or unveiled by the IEC yesterday have the mettle to could receive more than 40,000 votes. But we wish them well, like we wish everyone else well. Let them go and persuade as many voters as possible, but it's unlikely that we're going to have an independent candidate who will be elected directly into South Africa's Parliament. Even majority of these smaller political parties are not going to find traction. I'm 100% sure that more than 90% of the vote that we're going to cast on the 29th of May 2024 will be shared amongst 4 or 5 political parties. And the EFF is definitely at the center of the bigger share of that vote which we're going to get.